And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willapa Bay.
And next we have Ron McDaniel of Sulphur Springs, Arkansas. And he went commercial fishing in Bristol Bay with John Broderick. And John said, hiring Ron was like losing two good men.
Do me a favor for just a minute, and I'll just eat up some of my time with here. Stay right here, Mary. I've gotten to watch Mary through the years, and every year she just brings these honest, raw stories of her life. You're why we're all here, Mary. Would you let her see one more time how much we appreciate her? You might see a couple of more hats here this year. Now, they might be shaped a little different. Cowboys don't always shape their hats the same way. It kind of shows what part of the country we might be from. And I've got some friends here. A couple of really good horse vets are here tonight. They came last year for the first time, and got a couple of friends that are really good cowboys that are here. So I've been coming for 17 years, and oh, thank you. And now we've got, if you throw those two horse vets in, we got 4 cowboys that have come. And I did some math. I'm not real smart, but I just need to warn you, if you don't do something about that, in 170 years they're going to take over this. So just wanted to give you the heads up. You better work on it now. I'm always flattered, when you clap when I come up here, and I always change things the second year. I'm really humbled that some of you even remember who I am, and then some of you remember maybe a poem or a piece I did, and so I'll run into you during the day, and you'll be like, "Oh, are you going to do such and such?" And I'm so touched by that, I change everything I'm going to do at the last minute. So I may have to read one or two, and I usually memorize them, and I'm not trying to show off, by memorizing, but being from Arkansas, memorizing them is easier than reading. And I genuinely, I am so flattered the way Astoria and the Fisher Poets crowd has treated me, but I'm not being disingenuously humble when I point out the obvious to you. And I think in pictures, and I talk in pictures, so I'm going to draw a picture for you that explains in its true humility of, I understand my position, right? And I'm grateful for it, but I understand why I get more attention than I should at a FisherPoets Gathering. So I'm going to paint this picture for you. How many of you have ever been to a state or county fair? Okay, so that's most everybody in the house, right? Even if you're a fisherman. And if you remember that trip, you can walk down through the livestock barns and you're going to see the best breeding stock in the entire county or the state, right? The very best there is of the cows and bulls in there. But what do we all pay $5 to go see? The 5-legged cow, right? That nobody would breed to, but she's such a freak and so different, we're impressed. I am the 5-legged cow of the FisherPoets Gathering, and I'm happy being that, I'm good with that. But some of you maybe saw me last night. This is the only thing I'll do over. I had some friends that were coming that didn't, and they said, "Boy, we like that poem." A lot of my poems are silly and not that deep. But this one had some special meaning to me, and so I'm going to do this for you tonight. I don't need to explain anymore. The meaning will come to you. Adrift and floating, washed up on the shore. Most folks have no idea what this was once used for. But to the fisherman, it's clear what washed in from the brine. Oh, the cowboys would think this is a rope, but you and I know it's a line. We both use it to catch things we want to keep. Like cowboys, they catch wild cows, and you pull up your bounty from the deep. I often look at this line and I wonder, how many crabs did it pull in? Did it make their pockets full of cash? Or were their wallets still too thin? Well, this line's been used for roping cows, pulling up big pots, for lashing down our gear and tying things in knots. But the line you use to do your job, it can be the one to kill you. The rope we use to catch a cow, it can be the one to spill you. Now, there's no guarantee of always catching something in your loop. Some days we're eating ribeye, but most days we're slurping soup. There's a connection between us when we hold it in our hand, and you're out there on the ocean and I'm back here on dry land. Now, most folks, they'd say that we're different. In some ways, I think we are. But the distance in between us, it's really not that far. I don't think it really matters whether you call it a rope or a line. For you've been blessed to live the life you live as I've been blessed to live mine. So to most folks, this is just an old crab line that washed up on the shore. But to an aging cowboy, it's come to mean a lot more. Well, you can see it's been used a lot. Well, it's obvious that it's fraying. But it reminds me of fishermen, always sticking and always staying. Thank you. You know, I do have to tell you this. This crab line is a little bit light-weighted to really use like we'd want to. And if it's windy, it'll fold up when we try to throw a loop and catch something. But just from a sentimentality standpoint, I rope something with this line every spring. I'll rope a calf or maybe catch a yearling that needs doctoring, and I don't like folks that are arrogant, but I catch arrogance in the mirror every once in a while. And I know the first time I took this to a Brandon, it kind of made me feel like you've been around those people, and they're like, you're somewhere together, and they're like, would you pass the Grey Poupon? You know, and I'll be like, you want the mustard? And they're like, no, I'd like the European condiment, please. And you just want to whack them with the Grey Poupon. But I felt myself being that guy when I went to the Brandon pen that first year, and I tied a knot in it, as you can see, put me a Honda in there, and I shake myself a loop down, and those guys say, hey, what kind of rope's that you got there? And I'm like, it's not a rope, it's a line. And then they're like, well, how long's your rope? And I'm like, it's about 7 fathoms. So that crab line means a lot to me because it reminds me of the fishermen. I'll do 2 more real quick for you, and this one's a short one. Gathering cattle, driving in Montana, teaching my son to cowboy, putting out bulls, working my dogs. Things I like doing where cell phones never ring. The Southwest City Cafe, my son's deer stand, the Cowboy Shack at Adams Cattle Company, my house, places I like being where cell phones never ring. End of the day conversations with Nancy, cookouts with friends, reading a book, or unsaddling a horse. Things that help me relax, where cell phones never ring. The Mount Zion Country Church, Opal Leonard's living room where we cast our votes on election day. Small cemeteries and pastures, places my community gather where cell phones never ring. Shoeing a horse, comforting a child, doing chores alone, holding Nancy and just saying nothing. Things that help me grieve, where cell phones never ring. Friends, family, fishermen and cowboys we miss that have all gone to the great beyond, where cell phones never ring. Thank you. It was Fisher Poets that caused me to write a poem like that. That was the first prose that I ever wrote. I no, you don't need to do that. Really, I'm not that impressed with prose. I have no hard feelings, but all my stuff rhymes, and then, but you get around, poets, and they're like, well, have you written prose? And I'm like, no, I did something harder. I made it rhyme and have meter. I make friends everywhere I go, you see, so. I'm gonna get this last one done and get off. I kind of look for poetry that you could connect with, and I think you'll connect with this next one, and then I'll get out of the way. Palpation is a word that most folks don't toss around. It's something we don't speak of as if by an oath we're bound. It started when the doctor said, turn your head and cough. I was lined up with the football team like cows along the trough. And since that day so long ago, I get checked once each year. You think I'd be used to it by now, but I'm still filled with dread and fear. I feel hopeless as I stand there in the buff. The doctor's technique varies from the gentle to the rough. Some have no sense of foreplay and they just start right into groping. Others sort of bob and weave like a boxer rope-a-doping. And now doctors are recommending self-examination, with women examining their own breast. And men are asked to examine our gonads. You call that a medical test? Because there's a fine line between examination and self-fondling that's a little hard to find. Too much palpation, I've been told, can make a guy go blind. And now as I've gotten older, they've added to my humiliation. My prostate gets a dose of manual stimulation. As I hear that latex glove snap, I break into a sweat. The sense of panic is about as bad as it can get. Though the doctor uses lots of KY, there's nothing about it that's easy. My eyes always fill with tears. My stomach gets queasy. Yep. Prostate palpation is unavoidable. They're determined to poke that gland. So I've been searching for a doctor with a smaller hand. Last week I was commenting to my veterinarian about this awful randy occasion when a guy like me submits himself to a oral rectal invasion. He said, "Oh, you should stop your belly aching. You should quit that right now. You should just be glad that you're not a cow." Thank you.
White Maine spruce, grain so even, you can almost hear the music now. Sidewood bent in the water steaming, and the easy slide of a dovetail saw. I learned these skills, but no one taught me. I make guitars that others play. Too much rain and darn long winters, but I love the work of a luthier's trade.
Okay, thank you so much for talking with us today about the FisherPoets Gathering. We really appreciate your stopping. Can I ask your names and where you're from?
Christine
And Phil.
from Portland.
Yeah.
And is this your first time at the Poets Gathering?
No,
Third.
it's our third time. Third time
Yeah.
at the Poets.
Okay.
Before COVID and this one.
So if you're here 3 times, you really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's motivated you to come back. What is it you've super enjoyed about it?
Oh, the variety.
The variety. Yeah. There's some of the artists you want to hear longer, and yet 15 minutes, and then you're on to kind of somebody else, and the songs and the poetry and the prose, and some of it's very heartwarming and some of it's just funny.
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay, I know we only had performances last night that you probably went to. We haven't seen tonight's yet, but for what you've seen so far this year, what was your favorite?
Oh, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, it's such a variety.
It's the immersive experience, and there's such heart from each of those that are presenting, and it's such an honor and privilege to be in the audience. So we're loving all of it.
Oh my gosh, you were the perfect people to interview. So you said that so beautifully. So tips for anybody coming in, or anything you want to tell them to lure them in?
You can't go wrong with any of the venues. Just pick one, and I don't know.
And you can always get up and walk at any time, and it's so welcoming here in Astoria, and it's a perfect spot. And it's small. It feels like intimate encounter, being able to hear these such personal stories, and then you get to mill around and see faces that look familiar and new faces, and you just come. You're gonna love it.
You know what? It's been my privilege to talk with the two of you. Thank you so much for your time.